The millionaire laughed at the black maid and said, "So, you think you're smart? Then translate." But what he didn't know was that behind her quiet smile lay a whole universe. That day changed everything, not just for her, but for the company and everyone around. Loretta Mason worked silently, sweeping dust and carrying coffee through the halls of Brightware Corp., a giant IT company in Newark, New Jersey. She was invisible, just another shadow in a sea of polished suits and hurried footsteps. Nobody greeted her. Nobody noticed her. Until one autumn morning, when everything shifted. Loretta stood near the elevator, her gloves worn thin and bucket-heavy with cleaning supplies. The cold light from the fluorescent bulbs above flickered softly, casting a sterile glow on the polished floors. The smell of brewing coffee mixed with a faint trace of machine oil, and the faint hum of printers filled the air. Around her, footsteps echoed, sharp heels clicking, sneakers shuffling, the rustle of crisp papers and the low murmur of voices exchanging hurried business talk. She kept to the side, careful not to interrupt the flow. People passed by in clusters, talking about the company's IPO and market trends, their words slicing through the quiet like sharp knives. Loretta's hands moved rhythmically, wiping the surface of a desk as she caught fragments of conversation. She heard terms like valuation, stakeholders, and growth projections. Those words tugged something deep inside her, a memory she had tucked away. Long ago, she had dreamed differently. Once she had been a student at Rutgers University, studying linguistics, hoping to become a translator for the United Nations. She remembered the late nights hunched over textbooks, the thrill of mastering a new language, the pride in her professor's eyes. But life had other plans. When her mother fell ill, bills piled up and the family needed her. Loretta had to leave school. 4 years now she'd worked nights cleaning offices. No diploma, no recognition. Just the worn-out badge pinned crookedly to her jacket, a silent emblem of resilience. The elevator dinged, and a group of sharply dressed men spilled out, tablets in hand, faces set with importance. Among them was Chad Martin, the company's co-owner, 38, with the kind of confidence that filled rooms. His laugh was loud, self-assured, the kind that demanded attention. Loretta caught his eye for a moment, but he quickly looked away. She returned to her work, steady hands smoothing out a paper cup holder on a side table. Then, from across the room, she heard it. A sharp, mocking voice cutting through the chatter. "Oh, what do we have here? Miss Google translate herself." Chad's words hung in the air, biting, and loud enough for everyone to hear. Loretta's heart skipped. She glanced up, her eyes meeting his just long enough to see the smirk on his face. Nearby, a young intern struggled with a set of instructions in Spanish, quietly asking for help. Without hesitation, Loretta had stepped over and whispered the meaning softly, her voice calm and steady. Chad laughed again, louder this time, drawing the attention of the others. "Translate this if you're so smart," he said, tossing a sheet of business correspondence written in French onto her cart. "Let's see what you've got." The room shifted. Some laughed, others watched with thinly veiled amusement. Loretta felt the heat rise to her cheeks, but her fingers didn't tremble as she took the paper. She scanned the text, murmuring the words aloud clearly and precisely, correcting a technical term with quiet authority. The room fell silent. No one moved. Chad's smirk faltered for a moment. "You're right," he said, voice low, but he masked it quickly with a chuckle. After the small crowd dispersed, Chad found himself curious. Later that day, he asked around and discovered Loretta's past. The linguistics student who never finished. The woman who had put her dreams on hold. He invited her to his office, voice polite, but carrying that same edge of challenge. "Want to try something real?" he said, sliding a document across his desk. "A test, if you will. Translate a presentation into 3 languages, if you can." Loretta hesitated. The old fears crept in. The fear of ridicule, of failure, of being exposed. But there was something else, too. A flicker of hope. Maybe this was a chance. She nodded. That night, in her small apartment, the city's distant sirens and occasional car horns filtered through the cracked window. Her fingers flew over the worn keyboard of her old laptop, Google Docs open on the screen. Her lunchbox sat empty beside her, forgotten. She remembered her professor's words, the grammar drills, the cultural notes. Hours passed, stretching into dawn. When she submitted the work, it was flawless. The company's assistant remarked to Chad, "She outdid our contractors." Rumors started to spread. Some whispered, "Luck, nothing more." Others laughed, "She's just the cleaner." But Loretta kept her head down, focusing on the work. Then Chad gave her a real test. A live translation during a video conference with French-speaking partners. The call was tense. Loretta felt her chest tighten, but her voice was steady, her words precise, catching nuances even the company's hired interpreters missed. The partners were visibly impressed. "She's been under our noses all this time," one said quietly. The next day, HR asked for proof of her education. No diploma. Only the memories, the faded papers. Humiliation pressed down hard. A co-worker from the night shift found an old printout of Loretta's thesis and a photo from university. She held it out with a shy smile. Tears blurred Loretta's vision for the first time in years. Chad made his decision. "I want her in my team, not as a cleaner." He made it official, specialist in intercultural communication. Loretta's badge changed, but she tucked the old one away in her bag, a quiet reminder of where she'd come from. Standing in the bright office, the faces of colleagues now turning toward her with recognition, Loretta felt something shift inside. Not pride, exactly. More like a calm strength. Chad caught her eye one afternoon. "Never judge by the outside," he said quietly. She just smiled, knowing the story was far from over. Loretta's world shifted like the turning of the seasons. She had stepped out from the shadows into a space filled with light and expectation. But with that light came scrutiny and doubt, whispers and sideways glances. The quiet janitor was now a specialist, an unlikely voice in the sleek corridors of Brightware Corp. Her first days in the new role felt like walking on a tightrope. The office buzzed with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Some colleagues smiled politely. Others barely hid their disbelief. Loretta kept her head down, her fingers steady on the keyboard, her eyes alert to every nuance of language and culture she was asked to translate. Chad, once dismissive, now watched her with a different kind of interest. He approached her desk one morning, the weight of his presence filling the space between them. "Ready for something real?" he asked, voice low, a hint of challenge beneath the surface. She nodded, her throat tight but her resolve firm. Her next task was no small feat. An urgent presentation that needed translation into 3 languages for an upcoming international conference. The deadline was tight. The stakes high. That night in her modest apartment, the world outside dimmed to a quiet hum. The soft glow of her laptop illuminated her face, tracing the lines of concentration and fatigue. The hours ticked by, marked only by the clatter of keys and the occasional sigh. Loretta wrestled with phrases, cultural nuances, idioms that needed perfect adaptation, not just translation. Her lunchbox sat empty on the table, a silent testament to the sacrifices she made. She paused briefly, rubbing her tired eyes, then plunged back into the work. When morning came, she submitted the document with a cautious hope. The company's assistant looked it over and raised an eyebrow. "Better than the professionals we usually hire," she muttered, half to herself. Rumors began to swirl. Some colleagues dismissed her success as luck, others as a fluke. "Shh, she's just the cleaner," one whispered in the hallway, voice thick with disbelief. Loretta heard the murmurs but stayed silent, focusing on the work. Each comment was a sting, but also a reminder of how far she'd come. Then came the real test. Chad assigned her to interpret during a live video call with French-speaking partners. The conference room was filled with tension and the faint scent of coffee. Loretta's heart hammered as she adjusted her headset, the cool plastic pressing against her skin. The partners spoke quickly, idioms and technical terms flying fast. Loretta translated with calm precision, her voice steady, but carrying the subtlety and tone that bridged gaps. The partners exchanged surprised glances. After the call, one muttered, "How has someone like her been kept in cleaning all this time?" But not everyone was impressed. HR demanded proof of Loretta's credentials. She had no diploma to show, only the years of hard work and a thesis buried in a box at home. The request felt like a slap. Her cheeks burned with shame. That evening, a colleague from the night shift approached, holding out an old printout of Loretta's thesis and a faded photo from university. "You earned this," she said softly. Tears welled in Loretta's eyes. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to cry. Chad called a meeting and made his intentions clear. Loretta was not just a token or a joke. She was part of the team, officially recognized as a specialist in intercultural communication. She pinned the new badge to her jacket, but kept the old one tucked in her bag, a symbol of endurance and the journey from invisibility to presence. Her first weeks in the new role were a whirlwind of meetings, translations, and adapting content for diverse audiences. She learned quickly, sometimes stumbling but always recovering. One afternoon, Chad caught her in the hallway. "You've changed the way we work," he said quietly. Loretta smiled, the old weight lifting from her shoulders. Yet beneath the surface, she wondered, was this just the beginning? The office felt different now. It wasn't just the shift from janitor to specialist that changed Loretta's world. It was the way people looked at her, some with respect, others with skepticism, and a few with genuine warmth. She kept her quiet strength, the steady smile that had carried her through years of invisibility. But inside, the tension of new responsibilities and old doubts danced together. Her mornings began with the familiar hum of the city waking up, the distant rumble of buses, and the soft creak of the worn leather on her shoes as she stepped onto the sidewalk. She still took the same bus, still passed the same faces, but now her mind buzzed with languages, Japanese sentence structures mingling with French idioms, cultural nuances folding into strategies for the company's expanding international presence. The new badge on her lapel felt heavier some days, not with burden, but with the weight of expectation. She left the old badge tucked safely in her purse, a quiet reminder of the path she traveled. One afternoon, during a meeting about adapting the company's content for a new market, Loretta's voice was calm but confident as she suggested a subtle shift in phrasing to avoid cultural misunderstandings. A senior executive nodded thoughtfully. "That's exactly the kind of insight we need," he said. It was the first time she felt truly heard. Chad, watching from the side, caught her eye and gave a small nod of approval. His usual swagger was tempered with a new humility. Weeks turned into months. Loretta's ideas began shaping company policies. ethics in international communication, inclusive language, bridging cultures. She helped mediate a tense negotiation with a French partner, smoothing over a potential conflict with her keen understanding of cultural sensitivities. The ripple effect began. The company launched Second Start, a new internship program for people who had changed careers or faced setbacks. Loretta helped design the curriculum, drawing from her own story. One evening, as she packed up to leave, a young cleaning lady stopped her in the elevator. "I heard about you," she whispered. "Thank you for showing me it's possible." Loretta smiled, her heart full but quiet. At home, her mother's voice crackled over the video call. "I knew you'd find your way," she said softly. Tears glistened in Loretta's eyes, but she held back the flood, simply nodding. Back at the office, the story of the invisible linguist spread through local media. Comments ranged from surprise to admiration, but Loretta remained grounded, never boasting. On the bus ride home, she pulled out a book in Japanese, reading the delicate characters with a newfound ease. Her world had expanded, but she remained rooted. The final moment came one morning in the lobby. Colleagues greeted her by name. The receptionist smiled warmly. A new intern walked by, and Loretta returned the greeting with the same kindness she had once received. "Strongest bridges," she thought, "are built by those who know what it's like to be on the other side." And with that, she stepped forward, quiet, steady, unstoppable.